So digging right into this. Going right into this. If you recall, I've done videos. Yes, I've done videos. Anyhow, I've done videos and content diving into the Tren de Aragua gang. And people are under the misimpressionations, big word there, big made up word, of how they got to America. You know, there are so many people on the left who's like, oh gosh, it was so bad, and they had to forge their way up through the Darien Gap because the country they lived in was so bad. It's really dangerous in Venezuela's. And well, why was it dangerous in Venezuela? Because there was terrible gang activity up until recently, where it's been cleaned up in a matter of I mean, it's a very insignificant amount of time. It went from a not being able to tour country like America was like that's a big zero until like now it's at a two, which is I think they've actually outdone Germany. Germany's got a worse tour rating so far as their numbers as safety. So let that be a lesson to what's going on in Venezuela. It's a really good thing that the president that has been called a dictator, but has trolled everybody on Twitter, going, "Well, I guess I'm a pretty cool dictator then. Everybody loves what I'm doing. All the people love me. I've gotten rid of all the crime. You couldn't go to the hospital after 9 o'clock. If it got dark in Venezuela, you couldn't go outside. You couldn't go to the hospital, or you would be on the. I gotta take grandma to the hospital. She's got a diabetic reaction, but turns out we've been shot. Anyways, so this what we're going to talk about is how did the TDA Tren de Aragua gang make it to the United States? And in my videos that I've done, I've made statements that seemed a little outlandish, saying that they were actually purposely brought here through some of the plans that the Biden regime hashed out with the prior president of the Venezuelan people. Which, okay, let me go ahead and I got this dude's picture up. I think he's one of the good guys now. We're looking at, but I'm gonna read off some of the stuff there. These are leaked documents. I know leaked. We've heard all about leaked documents, but it backs up what I've also been able to obtain so far as knowledge through other means of content. And it'll all come out. You'll see that I'm right. But according to a briefing, Tren de Aragua gang members from Venezuela traveled through several foreign nations before entering the USA illegally and being spread out in safe houses in 20 different cities. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but those cities that they were sent out to, there was extreme crime rates through the roof if they reported it, but they didn't. So they say, well, crime rate's down. These guys are talking about crime is down in these cities. Well, that's because not only were they not reporting crime because the police weren't doing anything, they decriminalized some of the crime that it was. So even if you did report it, it wasn't a criminal act. That was even as far as just people that lived there, like American citizens. You could go in there to steal from stores and there was nothing wrong with it. But for what reason? And the article has a little questionnaire. It says, well, TDA members have come to the USA in large numbers to undermine our public safety and support the Maduro regime's goal of destabilizing democratic nations in the Americas, including the USA. And, how do you know it's a hostile foreign army? And this is some of the questionnaires and some of the answers that were given during these leaked documents and interviews and stuff. It says because TDA terrorists are supported by 300 military intelligence officers who trained them to engage in riots, sabotage, disinformation, espionage, social conflict, and armed aggression inside the USA. The chief of these 300 military intelligence officers is a member of the largest cartel in the world, Cartel de la Sols. Now, this would go in, you're probably thinking, well, what am I making this up? Where am I just coming up with these words? Let me, I'll bring us into that right there, since, a little visual here, a little visual. Okay, I'm gonna break this down. So, these Cartel de la Solsa, or de la Soles, and he thinks the link between them and the smaller cartels and the Maduro regime. Now, cartel members, as I move around a little bit here, just follow me on this. This is the new Mexican president, and this headline right here that you see is a mainstream article that was pulled up and it says Mexico's president warns U.S. against invading and to fight cartels after Washington designates them a terrorist organization that allows the military to take our U.S. military that's not woke to do something. But okay, so just remember that. Okay, now quickly moving back over to, let me go back to my article here. I've lost it now. Right here, there it is. Okay, so quickly, the Trump organization has made these people, or designated the Mexican cartels, the Sinaloas, and all these Cartel de las Solas, terrorist organizations. Like I said earlier, these Tren de Aragua gang members were in contact with these military intelligence officers. If you know anything about Arizona, and I learned this through the years that I've been making content on YouTube to try to show corruption in government officials, through a lady named Liz Harris. I don't know if you remember that name or not, but she was a big face when it came to understanding what happened in elections in 2020. Well, she was part of Maricopa's progress in understanding what was going on in the elections, and she did some content with us. We did some interviews with her, and she brought to the attention that there is a lot of gang activity in Arizona, especially in Maricopa County. Maricopa County is pretty much run by the Mexican cartel, just like Mexico is. Because the lady that's president of Mexico at the moment, she's pretty much just the face for the cartel. She's the mouthpiece for them. The cartel runs everything. She just is the brand, and makes it look like there's something legitimate happening in Mexico. All right. Well, so these, I'm reading back in the article here. It says these are officers in charge of training. And according to the leaked briefing, this means that when the Biden regime opened its borders to over 10 million people, it was knowingly permitting the entry of agents and soldiers from Venezuelan regime, and thus allowing them to pursue their goals and undermine the U.S. from the inside. Despite the obvious foreign invasion, Democrats and leftists are crying about the deportation of the Tren de Aragua agents who have been sent to the notorious CCOT prison facility in El Salvador. See, now, and in this article also, we know this, but had Kamala Harris been granted a 4-year term in the White House, Tren de Aragua would not only have carried out on terrorizing local communities, but would have also further expanded its operations and expanded great influence on American social and political life. They would have started to expand their brand. They would have been allowed to do so. There would have been very little in the way of what they wanted to do. Albeit recently now, we just had a federal judge that stepped in front of the Supreme Court of the United States, the SCOTUS, and has tried to put another hold on the deportation of Tren de Aragua people. Now, that's the reason why that is because a lot of the people that the judges work for are the ones that are sort of running the show on what's financially. That's where we're at there. It's hard to conceive the fact that cartels have infiltrated America to the extent to where you actually see this kind of stuff happening. But unfortunately, the reality is it's real. A lot of Arizona is run by the Mexican cartel. That's a very large hub for trafficking of all kind of different things, people, drugs, and all kind of stuff. And this is all alleged, by the way, but you can actually dig into this. I have to say alleged because lefties hate watch my channel and report me all the time. And I have to have the way to back this up because without me showing you the exact legal documents, there is that aspect. But anyways, lo and behold, trust me, I believe we're pretty well over the target. Not only Arizona, but Texas, California. California is not only run by a lot of the Mexican cartels, but the other part of it is that there's a coexistence of Mexican cartels and Chinese communist operatives in California that sort of run in New Mexico. You've got a lot of stuff going on there, and there's a stronghold. And the reason why Trump labeled the Tren de Aragua gang a terrorist organization and is using the Alien Enemies Act is because what they have found through our real intelligence in the United States is that these are very relevant and true things. A lot of the Venezuelan gang members aren't from Venezuela. They traveled through Venezuela from other places very strategically with instructions and different and also a mission they've been given mission papers. They've been, instructed of what they need to do, what they're going to do, and what they'll be rewarded with, which will be your property. I don't know if you know this or not, but if Trump had not been president, and things were allowed to keep going, all those apartment complexes that were being taken over by the Tren de Aragua gangs, they would have been theirs. There would have been eminent domain. They would have filed lawsuits. They would have been, by the way, the lawsuits would have been funded by you, the taxpayer, through pro bono attorneys who are representing a minority. They have a thing where they do this. This is what that one Venezuelan dude that was screaming and hollering on TikTok and Instagram on how to come across the border and get everybody's property and do the squatters things. This guy was actually deported too. You don't remember this guy or not, but that was the one at the very end when they grabbed him up. He had bubbles come out of his nose where he was crying. But yeah, so which very, very, very much relevant what's happening. And it's very true that these people were sent here strategically. And it's also very true that there is a correlation between the Biden regime and their strategic placement of these Tren de Aguas. Now, not to mention the fact that, like I said earlier in some of my other videos, were the actual movements of these people putting them in blue states and, trying to get them out of their state. Like red states were like, we don't want them. We're exporting them to blue states. Now, was this a strategic maneuver, or was this an accidental flub that benefited the agenda of the globalists who wanted to put these cartel members and these Tren de Aragua gang members in certain areas? By the way, with your tax dollars, it didn't cost anybody anything except for you and I to do this. I hate to think that this was, like when DeSantis was like, we're shipping them up here, and what's his name, Abbott, we're shipping them off to Chicago and other places. Well, wait a minute. This was it's not a good idea, because they all had a destination. It was weird. They knew where they needed to go. The media said, "Oh my gosh, guys, I can't believe that you're forcing them on buses." And no, there was many videos and different things that came out from other content creators showing where the people that came into this country illegally, they wanted to go to places like New York. They wanted to go to these certain states, and the reason why is because they had instructions to do so. This is where you'll meet up. This is where your contacts will be. This is where you're going to be given money, housing, food, and you can all organize in these areas. So that's, to me, was almost like, I really hope that Abbott and all them didn't understand what they were doing. I would love to think that they were that dumb. And there's a possibility that would have been the case. But then again, there's also the realm of possibility that these people were just operating under the guise of we're just doing what we're told. And acting like that was a noble thing for the American citizen to, don't get me wrong, getting them out of their state was a good thing because they weren't in their state. But, giving them a way to organize wasn't very smart either. Nor the laws would be relaxed, and the people that ran these states would just let them do whatever. Anyways, I just wanted to talk about that because there's so many people that are up in arms about the Venezuelan gang members being sent off, and there's some who are not getting due process. They don't deserve due process. These people have already had prior convictions. They're criminals. They've got all the gang tattoos. They're operating, and they probably have got information through text messages and emails of what they've been doing. They would, there's even that one guy they said they sent the wrong, no. The White House and other people, Tom Homan said, no, that guy needs to be not brought back. Trust me, I don't care what this family says. This guy was sent away for a reason. I trust that. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I'm out.